So we here at Lon'qudor have a surprisingly large Discord server compared to what a small channel we are. It's constantly active, it's filled to the brim with inside jokes, and for the longest time people have been asking me to essentially make a video ranking their custom TF2 weapons. I was reluctant to, as most of them were terrible, but after a good long while we finally got some good ones and enough for me to essentially make a video on them. Alright, part 4 of millions. We are going to get just straight into it today, as I really don't want these intros to get any longer as we have loads to cover. But I did just quickly want to say that the weapon channel is now unlocked, so if you want to go post your weapon ideas, you can now do so. Thank you very much, and let's just get into it. So first on our list today is the Antiair list. The Antiair list is essentially just a reserved shooter of pistols, having mini crits upon airborne targets launched by explosions, and also has plus 20% accuracy. The downsides are that it has a smaller clip and a slower firing rate. Now, I'm all 100% for this thing. I want to do a video at some point stating that every class should get like a sort of reserve shooter kind of weapon and how could we possibly balance that, and this is essentially really a good idea for the Scout and possibly Engineer as well. Valve originally tried to give Scout some combo potential with the Pyro, as in the Mad Milk could wet players and then of course the Sun on the Stick could crit against burning players. And I think combo characters are a really good idea, so I'd love to see some combinations between the Scout and Soldiers. Both of these classes tend to attract, kind of standoffish, oh I'm better than you and I'm going to be a solo roamer and get the team wins kind of people. But if those guys were to actually team up together, they could do so much more than they ever could individually. So the anti-air list, the direct hit of Scout, 100% love this thing. I really like the concept of the direct hit, and I think it should be added to multiple weapons. I know we've already got a reserve shooter, but like I said earlier, the lock and load should be able to do this. So, yeah, no, I'm putting this thing in balanced. I think well done. Maybe a little nerf, I'm not too sure. Maybe an even slower firing rate, like slower than pre-Jungle Inferno Pretty Boys. But I quite like the idea of this thing. Next on the list today is the Vladimir, and I was reluctant to put this thing on the list as just look at all those words. It's at this point in the video I need to say to everyone, please say at the top as to what character this weapon is for when you make a weapon and submit it. Like yes, with the Vladimir for example, I can obviously tell it's for the medic, yet the name is Russian and the term crossbow isn't the most defining thing in the world, as Sniper has bows and arrows already, so we could potentially give him a crossbow. But anyway, once I've covered the over 190 weapons we are left to cover, please start adding in what class the weapon is for. Anyway, it seems with this thing that it fires darts that only deal 1 damage, yet have several seconds of after effects. Now, it says poison damage originally, but then it says bleed, so I don't know if it's the same thing with just a different name, same mechanic, or if there are actual different status ailments this thing can inflict. But all you need to know about this thing is that it's a crossbow for the medic, deals 1 base damage, and then has several seconds of bleed afterwards. So I'm going to be real with you, this thing is not good. Why would you rather deal over effect time to damage someone than just outright kill them in the first place? Like, I once saw someone submit a weapon idea for a spy, which was like, it gave you a really bad bleed effect over time once you stab someone with it. Yet, why would you possibly want to use that when every other spy knife in the game one-shots someone from behind? So I'm going to assume the design of this thing is that so that the medic can actually support his team more with offensive debuffs. Yet at the same time, why would you choose offensive debuffs over keeping your team alive in the first place by either A, holding your medigun, or B, using the normal crossbow? Again, another wording that just doesn't make any sense, but it's essentially just the status ailment effect of the crossbows. I'm going to put it into... Ooh, I don't know actually. I wanted to put it in need of complete rework purely because the wording is just all over the damn place. But I think maybe I'm going to put it into a bit too weak. Because, well, I mean, the concept is fine. It's just not that good. Next on our list today is the PDA. The PDA is a mini dispenser builder. This PDA, I assume it's PDA anyway, gives the engineer an extra 25 health and then the exact same stats from the mini sentry onto the mini dispenser. Level 1 statistics, only costs 75 metal to build, and it also has a 200% radius increase for healing. So, I love this thing. This might sound overpowered with the 200 increased radius, however the base dispenser's healing is pretty abysmal. Now it's worth mentioning 2 things. One, there is actually a model for a mini dispenser in the files that was never added, and 2, if this thing's a PDA instead of a wrench, it could be slightly more overpowered purely because of that extra 25 health stat. You could equip this with the gunslinger and essentially have a 175 health engineer. Whether that's a good idea or not, I'm not too sure, but I love it anyway. Valve, please add it. Please. Yeah, I love this thing. I love it. Please add it to the game. Please. The model's in the files. Please just add it. So next on our list today is the Burning Boomer. This is a throwable secondary for, I'm going to assume, the Pyro for obvious reasons. And this thing is just plain cool. So you can throw it onto someone, onto a surface, or whatever it might be, and it will deal 8 DPS and then several seconds of afterburn damage. And for the 8 DPS, it will actually deal this in an area of effect. So you could throw this at a wall to make it like a mini area denial place, or you could throw this at a player so that if he walks into his teammates, he'll also set them on fire. You can, however, manually detonate this, and which it will deal 75% of its afterburn damage instantly. This is a bit like if you're going to die, you can decide between letting them get the afterburn or just immediately killing them, or, you know, you can detonate it in an area when they're close to their teammates. So this thing is just a plain cool idea. I don't think it's awfully overpowered because you are giving up the shotgun, yet I'm still on the fence of that. Yet either way, the idea of a sticky bomb you could attach to a player and then when they walk into their enemy team you could blow up is a really cool idea. Why you'd want to do this to Pyro specifically, I'm not too sure, but I'd much rather this be in the game than it not. So the Burning Boomer, love the idea of this thing. I don't know whether it's in good or balanced, but you do have to remember you are giving up the reliability of the shotgun for this. So I am actually going to put it in balanced. Fantastic original idea, let's see more of this. Next up we have the Genius Strategy, and once again I don't know who this is for, so I'm just instantly going to assume it's for demo. It's probably safe to assume this is a secondary, as right clicking with it consumes all 3 wishes. Now I don't think this is a wish mechanic, I think that's just flavorful text, but it will essentially give you a random effect for 5 seconds. It has a faster reload speed, 20% more damage, yet a very slow firing speed and reloads 1 bullet at a time. Okay, so for the sake of this thing, we're just going to completely assume all of the other bugs and intricacies are worked out, and we're only going to focus on this, well, special mechanic it has. So, how good is randomly giving yourself a random effect? Well, there's no answer to that, because it could be incredibly good or it could be incredibly bad, depending on what the random effects are. So, for example, you could give yourself instant health regeneration or overheal. But then you could also give yourself bleed, afterburn, or whatever it might be. So in reality this thing is just terribly worded and designed, but I wanted to include it as it's still an originally cool idea. There is potentially a way this could be balanced, if there were only 3 very minimal RNG effects, 1 of 3 that you could get at a time, or you know, if the wording was slightly better. But either way, I still thought it was a really cool idea that I wanted to include, but as it currently is, it's not very good. The Genius Strategy, I'm going to assume this is for demo, like I said earlier, but I just don't know, as it's not very clear. Now, I don't know where I'm going to put this thing, because RNG is a very difficult thing to calculate. I am going to put it in need of complete rework, purely because, you know, giving yourself uber charge for several seconds might be really good, yet just outright killing yourself would be horrible. It truly depends on what the potential random effects are for this thing. Next on the list here we have the Skull Skinner. And once again, not specified, going to assume it's a weapon for the heavy as of the minigun stat. This thing has a humongous damage bonus and a 20% faster movement speed bonus. You also take less explosive damage when active, so that's a nice bonus. However, this comes at the cost of 100% less minigun ammo, 50% slower swing speed, 50% slower deploy speed, 100% more damage taken from melee when deployed, and no crits whatsoever. Now, I think every class in the game should have a melee subclass to them, and this is obviously a good step in the door for heavy. However, I'm not entirely too sure how these stats will play out. 250% more damage? Would that one-shot someone? I mean, the base attack already does 65. I think the no crits whatsoever is a really good idea. However, I just don't know if this is a joke weapon in terms of it's a really cool idea, yet I don't know how to balance weapons, or if someone submitted this genuinely thinking it was perfectly balanced. But at the end of the day, I really don't know how this thing sits, but I really like the idea of a heavy playstyle. So, this is a good step in the door. So I want to see a melee only focused playstyle for every class in the game, but whether this is a good start, I genuinely do not know. like the 250% increase in damage. I'm very sorry, I don't currently have time to run the sums, but I'm going to assume that's pretty damn good. So I'm really just going to have to take it off face value, and I'm going to put this thing in need a complete rework. Because it's either going to need a much higher damage resistance, much less damage, or a much faster movement speed to, compete with Heavy's normal damage output. And I reckon that will do it for today. Sorry this isn't the longest video in the world. I did say these are going to get longer, and they are. But just currently, this is my first video back after my break. And, I had the weekend off because I had so many comments telling me to take time off. And you know what? I took the time off and I got out of the routine. This is why I don't need to take time off, as when I take time off and I break my routine, I get screwed over and I forget how to do things, and then I can't, I just can't get back into it. So semi-daily and the occasional double upload will continue this week. Apart from that, yesterday I announced our first annual Creators Program. So if you want to take part in that, if you want to start your own TFT YouTube channel like I have, please, please take part. You can join our Discord server for more information. And, I'm not going to quit if it goes bad, but I just really want to do something to give something back to someone who wants it anyway. And the only other thing I have to say is that the weapons channel is now unlocked, so please join the server if you haven't already, submit your weapon ideas, and I will get round to them eventually. Again, abide the rules, please read the rules, do not DM me them, do not DM the mods them, and don't post them in any other channels just to muddle things up. Thank you very much everyone for watching, and I'll see you later down the sunny road.